Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. And you want to improve yourself overall as a person, more so that you should be tuning in. Today, I have the privilege of being joined by Stefanie Gerke, who is from Berlin, Germany, and she joins us today to talk about how to overcome people pleasing. I know so many who suffer from this disease, and she's going to teach us exactly what it is that she does in order to overcome this addiction to people pleasing. And before I go any further, please help me welcome Stefanie. Hi.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Wow, I think it's so great that you say it's an addiction, because kind of it really is.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited that you've joined our show. And as I said, because I know so many people, I guess in my 20s as well, I did suffer from it. Part of growing up and the benefits of getting older is that it starts to be less and less if you are aware of it. But before we go into the deeper stuff, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm a former art historian, changed my career 5 years ago to become a life coach because I was so burned out at some point from not being able to say no. And so I thought this was a great, kind of topic for your podcast, because so much of what happened to me had to do with me not having the right words and not being able to communicate in a way that would have been good for me. So instead of sometimes saying, hey, I kind of need some rest, or I'm overwhelmed, or I'm so sorry, but I can't go to this thing with you because I have to recharge my batteries tonight. I did everything and everything anyone ever asked me to do, basically, or I tried at least. And I really suffered from trying to juggle all the balls. And so, yeah, before becoming a life coach, I worked at a university in Berlin, and I was a lecturer in art history, and wrote my Ph.D. And I had a company for art and architecture tours with two of my best friends. And so obviously this was already too much. It was a lot. And in and of itself, it was too much, but also being such a people pleaser in my 20s and early 30s, I just didn't know how to balance all this in a way that would have been good for me. So I spent a lot of time doing things that weren't really, I mean, we had a lot of fun also in those days, but I spent a lot of time doing things that weren't really mine, or that I didn't really initiate, or that I didn't really truly want to do. And that could have been like getting approached by my boss with another project that sounded kind of cool, but it also sounded like a lot of work and nothing that someone really had to do. And of course I would say yes, because I wanted to be a great employee, right? Or with the tour company, just going to all these openings every night to see gallery shows or art shows in galleries, all the time. It was so much. There was so much going on, and I'm a highly sensitive person, which a lot of people pleasers are. So I gather a lot of information when I enter a room, and it's a lot of, there's a lot of overwhelm, but I didn't know how to say no, thank you. And I had to learn that very, very the hard way, actually, because I just at some point I couldn't go on like this, so I had to drastically change something, and I had some coaching myself. I experienced the power of coaching. I was really surprised by how scared I had been to look at my own stuff and how liberating it actually was to do so and to find out that there was nothing really super bad hiding, below all those layers of trying to please everyone, and instead discovering what it was that I actually wanted to do and learning ways to communicate that. And that was so powerful for me. And now I want to kind of, help other people get that too, because it's so liberating and it's so much more fun. Life is so much more fun when you don't try to always please everyone, but when you actually look at what it is that you want to do and how to say that in a way without, hurting other people or pushing them away, because there's really so much you can do to um, be yourself and meet your own needs, but also at the same time have very, very close relationships with others.
What do you think is the root cause of people pleasing?
The root cause of people pleasing, in my opinion, is the negative self belief that I am not enough. I'm not enough the way that I am. So I need to be something else. I need to please others for them to like me. And that's never true. That is never true, but that's the core belief that is, at the center of you always trying to bend over backwards for others.
Do we start adopting those beliefs in childhood or as we grow older and become adults, thinking it's going to get us what we want if we please people?
Exactly. So there's probably a little bit of maybe some genetics, or maybe some, if for example, people pleasing and high sensitivity go hand in hand. High sensitivity is something that is already present probably when you come when you come into this world. But there's also, of course, you growing up with your parents or caretakers or whoever raised you, and them maybe um, not conveying to you this belief that you are just enough the way that you are, and that can be very unconscious and not at all, your parents probably, or your caretakers probably did the best that they could.
Of course.
Of course, not in every case, but most of the time, the caretakers try really hard to do everything right. But when I grew up, I don't know when you grew up, but I grew up in the 80s and in the 90s, and it wasn't really well known that maybe some people were a little bit more sensitive, or maybe that was known because it was obvious, but not how to deal with that. That there is such a way to handle very sensitive kids, for example, in order to honor their sensitivity and honor their needs, and to convey to them that they might be feeling a little bit more intensely than highly sensitive people, but that's completely okay, and that's completely normal. So that kind of instills in kids this belief that they are not okay the way that they are, and that makes you then very susceptible to uh, you know you kind of grow these antennas that that go outwards to the people around you, and you figure out, okay, um, this person likes it best when I behave, or this person likes it best when I'm not too loud. so I should rather be quiet. And this person likes it best when I don't when I eat in a way that I don't leave all the crumbs on the table or something like that. So you develop these antennas that go out to other people, and you gather a lot of information that give you feedback. How am I loved how am I most loved? And that makes you that turns you into a people pleaser, because you realize, okay, I can in a way, it's actually kind of manipulative. Of course, not in a negative, not with a negative intention, because the kid just wants to be loved and doesn't want to be alone because it's dependent on other people. But in a way, it's trying to manipulate people to love it. And as a grown-up, it's kind of the same. When you people please, you are not being your authentic, honest self, but you are kind of trying to become the version of you that would be lovable to the person in front of you. And
So
that's not very authentic.
It's fear of not getting the love you thought you wouldn't unless you people please.
Exactly.
And also when it comes to the famous saying, you teach people how to treat you. So when you operate from that, you are basically saying, every time I deal with Stefanie, this is how I'm going to be in order to get the acceptance, the love from her that I'm looking for. So I've actually taught you that.
Exactly. Yeah, we teach people how to treat us, and that's so true. And that means, we have, I think it's always so great to look at what do we have, what do we bring to the table, and what do we embody that we can actually work with. So when I coach people, I first we do a kind of status quo of what am I feeling right now? What are feelings for me? What kind of feelings do I usually feel? And how are they connected to my needs? Because every feeling communicates to us a certain need that is met or not met. And for example, we all, like, a very basic human need is connection, right? Connection to other people.
Yes.
And when we feel insecure, or we feel like a connection isn't really stable, then we might try to bend over backwards to get that need met of having that connection. So that is one thing that happens. And when we get more stable and more secure and more in tune with our needs and our feelings, then we learn that actually we can be ourselves and communicate in a way that is authentic and from the heart and still loving, and we can still be lovable even though we might not do everything that a person expects us to do.
And I hear what you're saying, and I agree. And I'm wondering why, if that's the reason. I can see you're married, so you don't experience this currently. If that's the reason dating has become so tricky, because lately everybody just operates this from this angle of, not everybody, but mostly, the reason it's so frustrating. You have this, I will put my foot a little bit in, but be cautious. Because I'm afraid to get hurt. I'm afraid to not get what I'm hoping for. I'm afraid that this person, I might have to manipulate them into accepting me and dating me long term unless I do these things.
Yeah. So I think you saw my ring, but I'm actually not married yet.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
That's okay. But I do have a very loving relationship now. But I used to not really know what a stable, loving romantic relationship was. I always chose people who were either very emotionally unavailable or very far away, or or something else that was in the way of having a very close, intimate, romantic relationship. And the last relationship I was in before this one actually was what you would call a toxic relationship, with me people pleasing and being codependent, and the guy being, a bit more on, well, had some kind of narcissistic tendencies, and was very self-absorbed, and basically everything always centered around him. And I'm not saying that this is his fault. It was a dynamic that was difficult. Because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was. So I chose someone who knew exactly what they wanted and needed, and catered to them all the time. And this was a very, this was something that I unconsciously chose, because, or subconsciously, not unconsciously, subconsciously.
Yes, they say
Because
subconsciously, because you attract
yeah.
who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I needed that. And this last relationship went so bad that I at some point said, okay, no more of this. I need something completely different. I did this coaching. Well, I went through coaching myself, and it was so revolutionary for me. And something I learned that I think is relevant for everyone out there is really to factor in how I feel in my body when I'm communicating with someone. And I used to be such a, I worked in academia, and I worked with my brain the whole time, and I was very kind of cerebral and very focused on thoughts and on ideas and concepts. And at some point I didn't really, it was kind of revolutionary for me to realize that feelings inhabit the body, and that, the body is such a great tool for realizing how I feel exactly and what's going on in my body, because I go into situations not just with my brain but also with my body, right? So what I do with my clients as well is try to get them back into their body, try to get them back in touch with how they're feeling and how their feelings show up in conversations with people. And when you do that while dating, I mean, you have so much more information than what the person is saying to you. You have information about, how am I feeling? Is this person making me comfortable or uncomfortable? Is this person, making me feel relaxed or anxious? Or not, is this person making me, but just simply, am I feeling relaxed right now or anxious in this conversation? You have all those signs and little things that your body also picks up on that your brain might not even register. But when you realize, okay, I have a body, and this body is a tool and it gives me information, you have so much more to go on than just what your brain is telling you. But I'm sorry, I think that wasn't really the question, right? You were asking about people not really committing, or
That,
being kind of
yes,
vague.
the vagueness, that all of this factor into that, because that's the space they're operating from. I find it's so ironic to me that this idea of listening to your body, listening to your feelings is so revolutionary right now, when this is all we should have been doing.
Exactly. It's I know, but for some reason, a lot of us, we get very, very disconnected from our own bodies. And this is true especially for people pleasers, because they have the antennas going outwards to everyone else, right? So you try to guess, what is this person thinking? What is this other person expecting me to do right now? And what is this third person? What is their mood, and how can I make them feel better? Right? So you have all your attention going outwards. So you have no more capacity to actually realize what is going on with me, how I'm feeling, what do I need right now? And I think this is so, yeah, it shouldn't be so revolutionary, as you say. But for some people, this disconnect is very, very strong. And when you can connect again to your body and to the sensations and to the feelings that your body is trying to communicate to you, it's very, very powerful. And it's so it just feels so much better. Your life just feels better because you are in it with your body and not
Mm.
just with your head.
That's what I'm saying. It's funny because, as you say, we must learn how to communicate our feelings, how we authentically feel about a situation. And I must say to you, Stefanie, I am not okay with this, and I must learn to say no and use the
Yeah,
right language. But how can I do that if I don't even take time to check how I feel?
exactly. Yeah. So that is also one thing that I think every listener who might have people pleasing tendencies can use as a really small tool, is to just, before answering to anything, any request, any invitation, any, suggestion or something like that, take one breather, like just inhale and exhale once, and check in with your body very quickly. Do I really want to do this? Or am I just feeling obliged to do this? Or do I think I want to do this because I should want to do this, but I don't really want to do it? So, just like you say, checking in with yourself quickly about how you really feel about this is so powerful and so important. And so that's like one suggestion that I have for people, to not answer right away, to not be in this automated mode, like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we can do that, yeah, sure, I'll take on this new project, or yeah, I'll come to dinner with you even though I don't know any of those people and don't really feel like it. So you don't have to do all those things, and people are actually sometimes quite happy. So I think a lot of people pleasers are scared that if they say no, or if they say what they really think, the relationship might get damaged, whatever kind of relationship, romantic, friendship, relationship with family,
Work.
work relationship, the kind of relationship you have with your boss or your coworkers. There's a great fear that relationships will get damaged, and sometimes that's true. So sometimes when the relationship dynamic is out of balance, and it depends on you always ignoring your own needs, then you honoring your own needs might actually, yes, damage that relationship. But then the question is that even such a bad thing? Because this relationship maybe was, kind of unbalanced from the very beginning. But other relationships will actually get stronger and more authentic and deeper when you communicate what you actually feel and think and want to say. And it's amazing to see how much more loved you will feel when you actually show your true self. It's quite astonishing, actually.
Mm-hmm. So, firstly, if you are in a relationship and the burden is on you to keep it going with your people pleasing, is that it sounds like such a, like I said, it's a burden. It's up to
Yeah,
you only, and yet it should be a two-way street. And isn't that being in like a fake relationship, so to speak? Because you're not really in a relationship as you, authentically as you are.
exactly. Yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
your people pleasing is the foundation that keeps that relationship together.
exactly. Is that the kind of relationship that you want? Is that a kind of relationship that is, as you say, a two-sided street? Is it balanced? Is it, does it make you happy? Um, do you get your needs met in that relationship? Probably not. If it's based on people pleasing, if it's solely based on people pleasing. And it can be very, very hard to change the steps of that dance, but always realize that a relationship is something between two people. And if you change your steps of the dance, and if you actually look at what you want and what you need, and learn to communicate that in a way that is still loving and still, honoring this relationship, you might be surprised how the other person can sometimes adapt and learn to change their steps of the dance as well. And if they don't, well, then you have more information to go on and to base your decision on whether or not you want to continue this relationship. But it's always starts with you. So I think there's um, a real kind of danger for people pleasers to end up in relationships where they care so much about the other person and where they actually enable unhealthy behavior in the other person. It's called codependent behavior. So the
Mm,
other person might be dependent on something, substances or unhealthy lifestyle or whatever. And you, as a people pleaser, you try so much to make it work for them that you actually enable them to have this unhealthy behavior. And a lot of times in those unhealthy relationships, you blame the other person then for things that are not working. You say, well, I'm doing everything I can to help you, but you are still not, healthy or doing this or, being a good partner or whatever. But that's not the way to go about it, actually. The way to go about it is to kind of, in a way, mind your own business, but with love,
mm,
to look inward, to look at yourself instead of pointing fingers to others, to point the finger at yourself and ask yourself, what is it in me that I am choosing these kinds of relationships, and how can I get to know myself better? I always say, like, getting to know yourself better is the foundation for living a better, healthier, more fun, and more loving life. Because when you know yourself well, then this is the foundation for having a life that you actually like, right? If you
yes.
know what you want, if you know what you need, if you know what kind of situations you're good at, if you know what kind of situations you're not at your best in. For example, I love one-on-one conversations. I love meeting one person, one friend, and having a deep, long conversation with them. Sometimes I also love group settings, but
Okay.
more so one-on-one conversations, So I sometimes also cherish this kind of group experience, and I also sometimes love, going to big events, but it also drains me a little bit because I'm very empathetic, sorry, and
Mhm.
I feel a lot of energies from others, etc. So I also do, I need to kind of meditate or do yoga every day to kind of stay with myself and stay connected to myself. And I've found a way now to live a kind of life that suits me and that makes me happy and that accommodates me as a whole person. But before I got to know myself so well, I was living this kind of life that I thought was needed at the moment, or that I thought others expected me to lead. And that's not great. You need to get to know yourself better and to find out what, what it is in you that makes you want to choose certain relationships over others. And there is a way to find real, great, intimate, awesome, authentic relationships with others without you having to bend over backwards and become a person that you're actually not. And that's it's really worth looking for that.
Yes, the work starts inward. So tell us three, obviously you're not going to give away your coaching your coaching program for free on this show, but tell us three key things that you really dive into when you are coaching a client who's trying to overcome people pleasing.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, um, what I always try to do with them, so three key things are really, first of all, to find example situations that you recently experienced where you felt like you actually wanted to say no to something, but you couldn't really. You actually wanted to say something else than you then said because you were kind of afraid to say what you really wanted to say. So I work with a lot of examples because when you dive into those examples, the next step is then to figure out what was driving your decision to change the wording or to change what you were actually saying. Um, and often it's a fear. So the next step is to find out what that fear is, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you afraid of that might happen when you actually communicate authentically? And it's often a fear of ending up alone, of not being connected to anyone. And just speaking about that fear often already makes it seem so much smaller and makes it almost go away, because when you actually say it out loud, it's like, okay, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to end up alone. But
Mm-hmm.
still, this fear is strong and it's very active inside of us. So it's really, I really, um, with almost every client, it's this kind of fear that's driving them. And then we try to find, this is maybe the third kind of key point, we try to find a kind of expression, or we try to find words that they could have used in that moment and that they can use in the next situation that comes
Right.
up, that feels good to them, that feels true, that feels authentic, that doesn't feel scary, and that makes them feel relieved or happy or relaxed. So we try to tackle that fear by looking it straight in the eye and
Mm-hmm.
balancing it out with some calm, some ease, some happiness or lightness. And if I may add a fourth thing.
Of course, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so the fourth component, and this is really super super important, is, as I said before, to locate these feelings in the body. So it's really about checking, okay, when you were in that situation and you were scared of ending up alone or damaging this relationship, how did that feel in your body? And then the next time that happens, you will remember, oh yeah, oh, I have this, this lump in my throat again, or I have this tightness in my chest again, which indicates that, I actually really want to say something, but I'm scared of saying it. And then when that happens, you now have the way of saying it because we've practiced it in the coaching session, that is actually okay for you. And that, of course, in the beginning, it might feel still a little bit weird, or you might feel kind of scared because it's new and it's maybe outside of your comfort zone, or it's maybe out of character for you in the
Mm.
beginning, or it just
Any,
feels like it. Yeah,
anything
it's
that's new is scary. You're gonna have
yeah,
the triggers again. You're going to
yeah,
feel the way you used to when you even think of the idea of saying no. So you're still gonna have
totally.
those triggers, yeah. Like you said,
Yeah.
you then give them the coping mechanism to help calm it down so that they face it head on. Karen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
And I always work with little mindfulness exercises with my clients. So they learn these very, very small coping techniques to calm the nervous system down, and to,
Yes.
something that you can do in every situation that you're in, because it's not weird or um, not inappropriate at all, is to just take one breath,
Mm,
one
mm,
conscious breath. you know your breath is always with you, so you can always use that as a tool to calm down your nervous system.
mhm.
And that helps a lot, actually. It's quite astonishing how this little thing can achieve so much.
We've had
Yeah,
3 episodes focusing on the breath. Actually, the first
yeah,
one was even titled "Your Breath is Your Superpower."
totally. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are 4 key things that I work on with my clients when they want to learn how to say no, without damaging their relationships. And it's working wonders. It's really cool to see how people then grow and kind of develop their own versions of no, because none of my clients are going to be, some super unfriendly version of themselves. That's not what this is about. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to, because lots of my clients see themselves as very nice people and see themselves as, that's just my character. I don't want to be not nice. And I always say to them, you don't need to be a bitch
Rude.
or
No.
or rude. Yeah, that's not, you don't need to do that. um, but actually what you're doing right now sometimes is lying to people,
The fake
and
relationships, yes.
fake relationships, and you're not being authentic, and that's not very nice, actually. You think you're being nice, but you're actually being accommodating towards them, but you're also being rude to yourself and to the other person,
Mm.
because you know when you always hide your own needs or your own feelings, resentment at some point will come up, and that
And
might,
that's not nice.
that's not nice at all. And that might turn into very passive, aggressive behavior and very indirect communication, where the other person is like then going to go like, huh, where did that come from? I didn't,
Yeah,
that was totally uncalled
because you
for.
just blew up.
Yeah, exactly. You blow up, or I don't know, you slam the door or something like that, without actually communicating authentically and truly what you wanted to say.
Hmm. Stefanie, so many people need this, and I know so many, even in our 40s, we struggle with it. As I say, adults are children in big bodies, and
Yeah,
some of us are still those children who are people pleasing,
yes.
trying to be nice, thinking it will get us what we want. So this has been a very, very transformational conversation. Thank you so much for coming to our show.
I'm so glad I was able to speak here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And before you go, where do we find you to speak more about people pleasing?
Yeah, so I have a website, stefaniegerke.coach. So that's, Gerke is Gerke. It's a German name, so it's a bit complicated for English speaking listeners, but you will find it probably in the show notes, right?
Yes, I'll always attach
Yeah,
everything about you there. Okay,
yeah.
so on your
And
website, everything is, or do you want to tell us something
yeah,
else?
on my website, And I have a weekly newsletter about people pleasing. So if any of this resonated with you, it's a weekly little inspirational story with a little takeaway insight for people pleasers. And it's in English, and yeah, people are really liking it. So it's a lot of fun for me to write those. So you can subscribe to my newsletter if you want. And I'm also pretty active right now on LinkedIn. So I actually kind of like that professional network right now. And I am trying to be more active on Instagram as well, and might even try TikTok now, but I'm not sure
I
yet.
love that.
Yeah, so yeah, find me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, and go find my website and sign up for my newsletter.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Stefanie Gerke from Germany, who is changing the world one person at a time by helping us overcome the addiction of people pleasing. Before this,
Yes.
by the end of this episode, please remember to subscribe, give a rating and a review, and check out Stefanie's website, LinkedIn, and Instagram accounts if you need to overcome this addiction. Thank you so much for being on your show.
Thank you so much, Roberta. It was a pleasure being here.